Any change which has to happen, has to happen gradually. And that is what CBSE is also struggling.
You mentioned about teachers training. Are the teachers undertrained? Is the board helping? Are the schools doing their part? Now the students, the parents, they are not treating the teachers in the right way, or they are disrespecting.
It's not about parents are not respecting teachers. Parents themselves are not getting that respect.
But what about the exam culture in international boards? Is it memory based or is it application based? If you were the education minister for one day of your country, what is one thing you would remove from CBSE school?
Many young people are so engaged with online social media through the day, through the night, when they should be sleeping, and then in the morning they're waking up and they're thinking, I'm too tired to go to school.
So do you think CBSE is giving equal importance to sports and academics?
A lot needs to be done, I believe.
On a lighter note, should students bunk classes?
Students are bunking classes, then teachers are failing. Evidence of students learning is testified through marks only. That's how the perception is again built.
3 myths about the CBSE board. Would a CBSE student make a good prime minister?
There's one thing that we need to remove from our schools, and that is social media and smartphones.
If I study in a British board, can I only go to Britain or the UK for higher education?
Every parent at some point asks the same question. Which board is better for my child? CBSE or international? Marks or mindset? Academics or all-round development? Today, we had a rare conversation with 2 global leaders. One, Mr. Vacher, all the way from Oman, British school Muscat. And the other, Mr. Kanwaljeet Khungar, chairman of Bharat National Public School. In this episode, we discussed Indian education versus international education, or CBSE board versus international boards. The role of sports, pressure and freedom in both the boards. And are students really allowed to bunk? This episode will help every parent and educator to figure out which board is the best for their child. Stay tuned, Mr. Vacher and Mr. Kanwaljeet Khungar on SchoolCast with Avyakt.
Mr. Kai and Mr. Kanwaljeet, welcome to SchoolCast with Avyakt.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much for inviting us onto the show, and it's a very special privilege for me to be here in Delhi. This is my first time in India, so thank you so much.
So we'll start with a short introduction of both of you. Can you please start?
Well, I'm Kai Vacher, principal of British School Muscat and British School Salalah in Oman. Been there for 14 years, and before that I worked in 2 state schools in the UK for nearly 15 years, and then I also worked for a school improvement agency in London, supporting schools right around the UK and in other parts of the world.
Wonderful.
I'm Kanwaljeet. I'm heading a school under the name of Bharat National Public School. I'm also the managing director of another group of school, which is Happy English School. Of course, associated with this school for last 32 years. But yes, my background being in management also, and looking at the school from an academician point of view, it's a beautiful journey. All these years actually have just flown by. So
Lovely. So let's start with one misconception which people have about the CBSE board.
one basic misconception, I think, is where CBSE is still considered to be promoting rote learning. I think that is a misconception strongly ingrained in people from their yesteryear experiences. But I think CBSE have moved a long way from that position. A lot of new innovations, competency-based learning, application-based learning is the new norm for CBSE. So that is, I believe, is a myth now, which is still prevailing in the minds of people.
But don't you think that what people are thinking, because they are facing all these situations and the board is trying to make the changes, but they are not able to make the changes very fast because the number of students is huge.
India is a diverse country with so much of population out there. So any change which has to happen, has to happen gradually. And that is what CBSE is also struggling with. So a lot of new changes, but at a ground level, because of logistic issues also, it's not easy to roll out all these changes at once. So with NEP support and alignment, a lot of things actually are coming to fruition, which actually were pending for so long. But I think the days are brighter. It's just that some kind of synchronicity is required in terms of what the schools are doing and how higher education also accommodates all these changes. So I
Absolutely.
think that is the basic issues. Otherwise, yes, the perception is there, of course, about CBSE schools being outdated curriculum, or the way it is promoting some kind of rote learning only. But I think with 50% of the weightage on competency-based question and all other things which gradually they've been able to build over the years, is showing its result now. In at least in urban areas, it's very visible.
Yeah.
But in certain far-flung areas, some way to go. And
Long way to
also,
go.
I believe, I mean, it's also about, you know, the earlier we train our teachers to adapt to these changes, the better would it be. And then the perception changes from the ground level, and people see the changes happening in a tangible form also.
So the main point is rote learning, and we'll come to the teachers training and everything else. So, Mr. Kai, what do you think there's one misconception about international boards?
Interesting question. I think one misconception is that exams are getting easier at GCSE, IGC, and A level, and I think that there's a real disservice to the really hard work that many students put into their education, and in particular when they're studying for these exams, and also the teachers, the staff, the parents who support them. I think if you went to any of our students, whether they did GCSE or A level last year, and say, well, that must have been a lot easier than it must have been 20 years ago. Obviously, the students don't know what it was like 20 years ago. But when you see the pressure and the stress that those students are going through, when you look at the professionalism with which the staff prepare those students for those exams. And yes, there might have been over the years some what they call grade inflation, but exams getting easier, I don't see that at all. I don't see that at all, no.
So rote learning and exams getting easier. These are two myths which you've mentioned about the CBSE and the international board. So you mentioned about teachers training. What do you think is happening with teachers training? Are the teachers undertrained? Is the board helping? Are the schools doing their part?
I think with teachers, you know, with so many years of working in some kind of a framework, it becomes difficult overnight again to unlearn whatever they have learned all these years. So teachers have also been groomed in some kind of a system in their earlier year also, and in terms of also their teacher training courses. So again, unlearning and then learning these new skills,
Yeah.
learning to allow child to explore things for oneself is something which has not happened while they've been students. So difficult for them, and we need to understand that also, that teachers have an intent. They want to give whatever best is for the students. But then building those new skills is taking time,
Yeah.
efforts. CBSE is making a lot of effort. This mandatory training is also helping a lot. Different master trainers going different places, doing all this. But yes, as we already discussed that, long way to go because of the humongous amount of areas, people, and population, of course, plays a part into it.
No, but do you guys think that now the students, the parents, they are not treating the teachers in the right way, or they are disrespecting, they're not giving the utmost respect with which they should?
I don't think so. Unlike, I don't know about he would come to GCSE, but in Indian context, I think times change, and people also actually respond to a situation based on the realities of that particular time. So it's not about parents are not respecting teachers. Parents themselves are not getting that respect from, if we say, from their wards, and also how the entire fabric of society is operating. There's a deeper causes to that than only blaming it or putting it across to teachers, because it's some kind of a vulnerable section of
Yeah.
society where anything goes wrong with the student is blamed on school or teachers for that
Yeah.
matter. But I think at a larger level, I think it's not that the teachers are only isolated for that or singled out for that. But at a larger level, we need to examine when times are changing. We need to set aside our own ideologies, earlier ideologies, and look at things afresh.
Yeah.
Children are questioning now. They are more upfront.
Yeah.
They don't agree with what we are saying. They see what we are doing. So all these things matter. So I think I won't put it only that teachers are being subjected to this kind of humiliation or questioning. I think in general, society has to change and respond to this kind of mindset.
So in international schools, are teachers given the same respect they were given 20 years back?
Well, again, interesting question. I've been in Amman now for 14 years, and I talk to teachers, school leaders all over the world. And my own experience of being a school leader in Oman and that of my colleagues at British School Muscat, British School Salalah, is for many of us is we've never been so well respected as we are in Oman as educators. And I do hear that resonate in quite a lot of, certainly across the Middle East, from colleagues in other parts of the Middle East and also around the world. And it's not everywhere. And when I went to China, and it was really interesting, I went to China 10 years ago to speak at an education conference.
Okay.
And I remember hearing in China that teaching is regarded as a noble profession, if not the noble profession. And I think maybe globally as a profession, we need to be thinking about how do we support our colleagues and support educators. So we are, as educators, seen as maybe the noble or a noble and global profession. Because I think we have a teacher recruitment problem in many parts of the world as well. And I think for me, one of the key things that we could do globally to support recruitment into education is that young people who are currently in schools and young people at university, young people who are thinking what to do with their lives, that if they can think of teaching as a noble and global profession, I think that's a really attractive starting point. So coming back to your question, Kevin, Avi, about being respected, certainly in the international sector, I think in many parts of the international sector, teachers are very well respected. That's what I'm hearing, and that's what we're certainly feeling in Oman.
Yeah. But what about the exam culture in international boards? Is it memory based or is it application based?
Well, I think it's evolving. I think it's evolving. I mean, there are some really exciting developments. For example, at A-level now, so post-16, you can study something called the Extended Project Qualification, so EPQ. And that counts as half an A-level subject, half an A-level grade. And that's where the students have the autonomy and independence to pursue an inquiry into an area of their choice. And they have to do a whole load of research and explore an area of learning. And they have, I said, a lot of independence and autonomy to do that. And that then helps develop their research and inquiry skills. And so that's definitely moving right away from memory and is much more skills based. And I think as A-levels, as GCSEs and A-levels evolve, they are becoming more skills based, more inquiries based. I mean, if you look at subjects like design and technology, where there's a lot of project work. If you look at drama, where they have to design, the students have to design a piece of drama. If you look at art, where they have to work through a very careful creative process to end up with a piece of art at the end of it. I think as these subjects evolve, they are becoming there's becoming a better balance of knowledge and skills within those curricula.
But if you had to choose one, memory based or application based, which one is it right now?
Which ones right now? Which ones are important right now?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that if you're studying geography or history, for example, it's quite hard to study geography or history if you don't understand a basic map of the world, or if you don't understand the basic chronology. So I think having knowledge frameworks in which you then learn skills and develop understanding. It is both, Avi. I mean, I'm not going to come down. I think it's a false dichotomy to say it's either memory based or skills based.
Yeah,
I think you need both in the world.
Yeah, that is true. But I am personally a CBSE student, and what I passed out of school in 2015. But what I am seeing nowadays as well is that a lot of edtech companies are booming, and their only vision statement is that we'll get you to a 90% or a 95%. So we in India, I think we are still running behind marks. So do you think CBSE is still memory based or application based?
Again, I would say the same thing. I'll use the same phrase. It's
Okay.
evolving
Okay.
because one part of it is the technical aspect of it. With our own experiences earlier, they've been changing, of course. When I mentioned that, I said that in terms of CBSE coming up with different initiatives, when they say application based kind of questions, now they have raised it to 50% in grade 12th, and in 10th it's around 40% application based case studies, which actually are becoming very prevalent in grade 12 also. So things are changing. Yes, of course, there has to be a balance between both the things.
Yeah.
Unless you know certain things, you won't be able to build or
Yeah.
create out of that only. So learning is actually, of course, it builds on each other.
Yeah.
So once we say, if we have to have that mastery in some kind of learning, we'll have to start from the basics.
Absolutely.
But yes, the testing of knowledge actually comes from our application towards it. So CBSE is working in that direction, and therefore open book exam. Now these kind of initiatives which have been taken in grade 9th and 11th. So these are exam twice a year exam. This again is something where children can have a choice in terms of preparing themselves better for the exam also. So all these things are indicative of the direction CBSE is going into, in terms of having a fine blend of both, a balance of both. And I would also say the balance is the key. And when you talk about these tech companies claiming about 95% or 100%, whatever, uh, basically I also believe, and I've also experienced, there's nothing wrong into scoring high. It's just that the pursuit is understanding, assimilation, application, or only technical kind of, say, pursuit of marks. So if these things are balanced in terms of understanding, a child is enjoying what the child is studying and being able to reproduce, of course, and apply that knowledge, I think the entire circle of learning is taken care of.
And if I just give a building on that and like just give a real world example, if you're contracting someone to build a bridge for you, you want an engineer who really understands physics, the mathematics of building that bridge.
Yeah.
And you want that to be safe, well built. You need knowledge to do that.
Absolutely.
And what you also want is when they come up against a problem, so they come against a massive boulder which is very difficult to move, and they've got to rejig the design. You want a creative engineer who can apply that knowledge creatively, so they can overcome that problem. So just having the knowledge isn't enough, but it's essential, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. But then studying subjects like art, drama, music, design and technology, these creative subjects where young people are having to think about problems and coming up with creative solutions, we then that should help our engineers, whether they're computer engineers, civil engineers, or our doctors, to be able to apply that knowledge and understanding with creativity.
Yeah.
Because that's the magic source, is the two together.
Absolutely. So if you were the education minister for one day of your country, what is one thing you would remove from CBSE schools?
I would say, adding on, if I say one emphasis, I would always want every CBSE school, for matter any educationist, I would say would be thriving for, is to make children learn how to learn. So anything with student, what to learn is of course important. As we've been talking about the knowledge repository, we need to have that knowledge to be able to function on that. But I think going forward with this kind of uncertainty, it's very important that students are learning all these things and understanding how to learn all of that on their own. So when we are talking about different other subjects areas as drama, art, theater, music, so these and the subject areas as well. I mean, we can design everything in a manner in which student is first of all trying out things, learning by doing, and then of course going to the teacher for some kind of feedback. So how is it possible in a CBSE school with a large system with so many people and giving those kind of individual feedback to groups and students individually and in group is demanding, of course, very difficult. But this is one thing I firmly and strongly believe in. Students with this kind of uncertainty, where you never know what kind of profession is going to change the entire game of industry outside. We've been talking about teach students learning coding and life is set. 5 years back we
Yeah.
were talking about this.
Yeah.
And now with AI advent, everything is gone.
Coding is gone.
So you never know. So
Yeah.
but we are preparing children for how they are going to now counter all these things which are coming out in the industry is not known to us. But one thing for sure, if students are prepared, if they know how to learn, if they can figure it out themselves, and having that kind of emotional resilience which comes from working with people,
Yeah.
getting feedback, understanding, facing failures, and not taking that burden of that much and still moving and having the perseverance. I think these are few things I would say, some kind of a specialized focus or every teacher on that.
I think one thing which we can add in schools, in our society, is teaching people how to take feedback.
Yeah.
Because not to take it personally, but to take it in the right way and learn from it.
Yes.
What do you think one thing you would remove from international schools?
Well, I think if I can just acknowledge what you've just said there, learning how to learn is probably more important than anything to do with AI at the moment.
Absolutely.
But if we're going to focus on learning how to learn and the exams and all the other things we're trying to do in school, there's one thing that we need to remove from our schools, but also from the lives of our young people. And that is social media and smartphones.
Yeah.
And if there's one country that's got this right at the moment,
Australia.
it's Australia.
Yeah.
Because there's some really, really worrying information just coming out this week from the UK, where we've got more than 20% of young people persistently absent from school.
Yeah.
Because many young people are so engaged with online social media through the day, through the night, when they should be sleeping, and then in the morning they're waking up and they're thinking, I'm too tired to go to school.
Brain fog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think Australia is being really brave and courageous. But if, I'm sure we could have long conversations about the problems we see nearly every day
Yeah.
that are caused by young people and massive over engagement in social media and doing stuff on social media that they just shouldn't be doing. And we protect them as schools and as parents. We protect young people so much in the real world. And they go off to their bedrooms and they go online. And a lot of our young people then go anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's completely unregulated, unprotected, and it's doing a lot of damage. And I'm a great fan of Jonathan Haidt's book. I'm not sure if you've come across it yet, The Anxious Generation. And he suggests 4 norms.
Okay.
And the first one of those is no social media for students under 16. Completely agree with that. No smartphones for children under 14.
Okay.
Phone-free schools, which hopefully is something we're achieving now. But also the fourth thing is a real focus, which would really help your point on learn to learn, a renewed focus on independent play, outdoor learning, getting young people out into the real world and learning together and learning outside and learning independently. And that's a real issue. So yes, please, let's get rid of social media under the age of 16, because then that gives our young people the space and the energy to focus on the things that they need to focus on for their learning.
Absolutely. You mentioned outdoor activities and outdoor things. So do you think CBSE is giving equal importance to sports and academics?
It is giving importance, of course, but at a systemic level, a lot needs to be done, I believe, because CBSE's own a sports body which is conducting these kind of prestigious tournaments where children are going in for state, national level and internationally also. So that way the promotion is there. But again, I see that 2 different entities running parallelly. So sports, yes, focusing on sports, but where the integration is taking place, how we can make it a integral part of school curriculum where students currently also the kind of things I experience, students doing very well in sports also, but parents at the last moment to make a choice about the exam which is actually upcoming or the sports event they have to go to, they will undoubtedly will go in for that exam preference only. So they're not able to see that kind of thing, and for that kind of change of perception, change of understanding will come only when they see that these things are also leading to some kind of a lucrative career for kids. They are not getting some kind of defunct or some kind of a compromise in terms of their own furtherance of the career because of that. And therefore, alignment with the higher education institution, due credit to sports also as a subject, that has to come from up there.
Do you think international boards are giving equal importance to sports and academics?
I would say we give equal importance to sport, performing and creative arts, and academics. And that really is the core of, if you like, the traditional British education model that goes back quite a few hundred years. And the organisations like HMC, I think, do a great role
What
in
is HMC,
protecting.
sorry?
So HMC, sorry, is the organisation of leading independent schools in the UK, and,
Okay.
also it also has an international branch. And the core of, if you like, traditional British education is strong academics, which is complemented by sport and performing and creative arts and student leadership and critical thinking and debating. And these core pillars of this educational model form really the core part still of many international schools. And so you will find in our curricula, you will find dedicated lessons in the core curriculum for drama, music, art, dance, very often, design and technology, where you've got students in specialist spaces, in design and technology workshops, in art workshops, in drama studios, in dance studios, in music rooms with musical instruments, where they are doing hands-on, practical, creative, collaborative learning out on sports pitches, in sports set, and so on. And what you'll also find in many international schools is that they'll have a core day. So we have our core day from 7:30 till 2:00. And then for 2 hours after that, we have an extracurricular program, which most of the students engage with, where we've got a whole additional program. In addition to the core curriculum, arts and sport, we've got the whole extended range of sport, arts, and so on, a whole range of activities, additional activities for students to get engaged with. And we're really trying to make sure that we don't use those for extension, sort of academic extension work, that those 2 hours after school are protected for the arts and for sport. So, for some students, the only reason they'll come to school is for the sport, or for the drama, or for the art, or for the music. And so it's really important that we create space, time and space for those young people to engage with that in a really wholesome way.
Yeah. On a lighter note, should students bunk classes?
I mean, I always say if students are bunking classes, then teachers are failing. So it's not about why students do not want to sit in a class. It depends largely on how interesting that class is. So yes, but once in a while, if students are bunking classes, also it should not be taken up too seriously, I believe. So
should students be bunk classes? Well, I'd really hope not, because what we've not talked about in this fascinating conversation, Abby, is we've talked a lot about exams, we've talked a little bit about attendance, but actually what I think we're really trying to achieve in our schools is students actively engaged in their learning and in their education. And that is what I think we should be aiming for day in, day out. And we should be working with our teachers, with our staff, with our young people, our families, and thinking, what is it that is stopping more young people actively engaging in their education? And there's a fantastic book out recently called The Disengaged Teen by Jenny Anderson and Rebecca Winthrop. And they talk about 4 different modes of engagement. And they're like highest mode of engagement. They talk about young people as explorers of learning. And I think that's really wonderful. And they go through a number of behaviors that identify students as explorers when they're exploring their learning. And I think that's a really exciting piece of work. And it's something that I'm starting to work on now with my colleagues at British School, Muscat and Salalah, is how can we develop our curricula, develop our pedagogy, so our young people, more of our young people, are exploring their learning. And if they're exploring their learning, they're going to be so curious and so engaged that bunking off school would be a real punishment for them.
Yeah. So we spoke about marks being important or not important. So do you think students are focusing so much on marks because new parents are impatient and they want to flaunt their child's marks? They want to show off in the society that my child is a topper?
Yeah, in India, yes, it matters a lot to parents, because for them also the evidence of students learning is testified through marks only. That's how the perception is again
Yeah.
built. So people still want to flaunt that marks, and though it's also, if we look at the practical aspect of this, marks do not carry that much of weightage in terms of admission now. If we look at that, even in university admission, there are common entrants actually which are now
Yeah.
placed out at all places. It's similar about competitive examination, also the same kind of trend. But still, marks are still, because I think that's because of our limited understanding about learning in general. Because if you understand that, if student is able to, yes, learn joyfully, engage with the content, and coming back to that, I mean, on a lighter vein, when we talked about bunking classes, of course, this is important that I'm not advocating bunking classes as such, but the reason behind that. If we go on the reasons behind that, and most of the time when children are doing certain things, no, we have our assumptions of operating from some kind of a set notion we already have it.
Yeah.
So asking students about the reason of why they are doing it or wanted doing it, and as you rightly initially also mentioned in terms of, are we ready to take feedback as teachers as well?
Yeah.
Are we ready for that? As parents, are we ready to take that kind of feedback? If the child is not driven intrinsically to study and do well, then we should be worried. Then we should see what kind of an ecosystem we have to create for that child to be able to excel. And social media is also part of that only. There has to be some kind of negotiation related to that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it will be possible for us, like in Australia, to completely ban that or maybe remove that from the school system. But yes, in terms of what are we negotiating on? Are we talking to students about it? Also listening to their point of view and deciding on what is good for the purpose for which the child actually is studying or doing whatever at that point of time. So for me also, the important thing in this, sorry, I lost track of the question. I think probably I'm trying.
The question was, are the new parents impatient?
In that way, I would say impatient, yes. That's a norm in society actually.
Yeah.
Our attention span, our patience level is
Yeah.
definitely deteriorating. It's going down. In students' case, yes, because students again are the weaker kind of, when they are very young, actually they're considered to be weak that way, and parents can force their rules on them. And later on, when students do not, or children don't listen to them, they feel offended because they feel like
Yeah.
been disrespected. So I think right from the beginning, it's important that yes, it is happening. That's true. But whether it should happen like this, no, that's a choice. If we are now embracing that change, having those kind of conversation with kids, I experience that every day.
Yeah.
When giving these kind of autonomy to children, children do not choose things which are actually going to sulk them deeper into some kind of a pit. They actually want to rise. They want to grow.
Yeah.
They want to learn. But the point is, are they in terms of having some kind of stakeholding in our decision making while we are deciding about things for them?
Yeah.
So if marks, yes, and coming back to marks also, I think it's not that I don't put it in some kind of a black and white. Marks should not be a big no-no, and marks should not be a criteria for that. Marks also is, if a student is learning something, if it is evidenced through marks also, then why not?
Yeah.
But should that be the only criteria? No. That is something a limited and narrow vision of looking at the learning. So we'll have to look at all these aspects. Certain things which actually come through these kind of tangible things, but also there are processes which are taking place.
Yeah.
Student happily going to school, happily coming back from school, wanting
Yeah.
to talk about what the child has been able to learn and not learn, not being forced to go to unnecessary tuitions and other things, and spend some time with sports, arts activities, theater, music. And these are subtle things which actually bring so much of beauty in life.
Absolutely.
So are we listening to all of that, or we have some kind of set ambition in our mind, and because of the problems here in India, then only those students, 0.001% student will be qualifying for IIT, would be the winners only, and all other losers. That kind of mindset has to be challenged then.
Yeah. Are the international new parents impatient?
Not in my experience. Not in my experience. I mean, it's an interesting point there about marks. Again, one question that comes to mind, one question and one piece of research comes to mind when you ask that question. The question that comes to mind is, do we value what we measure?
Yeah.
Or should we measure what we value? And if people like me are saying we should value engagement, how do we value engagement? And if the kids were going home with a mark for engagement in each day, would that help the parents value engagement? But the bit of research that the question makes me reflect upon is Professor Dylan William. I'm not sure if you heard about his work. He's done a lot of work on assessment learning. You were talking about feedback earlier, Avi.
Yeah.
And feedback is really important, and how we and young people, how we give feedback and how we receive feedback, I think it's quite an interesting area to explore. And there's always seems to be a lot more work to be done on that. But what's interesting about marks and feedback, so Dylan Williams draws on a lot of extensive research about marks and feedback. So he has identified through the research that if you give young people a grade or a mark and a comment at the same time, what do? What will they look at? They'll look at the grade.
Yeah.
They'll ignore the comment. And the teacher could spend hours writing comments. So they will ignore all the feedback.
They'll only look at the grade.
They'll look at the grade because that's ego-based.
Yeah.
Whereas if we really want the young person to engage with the feedback, we have to give the comment without the grade. And you can maybe nearly bribe the students. Well, I'm giving you some feedback. I want you to engage with that feedback and respond to that feedback. And once you've done that, I'll give you a grade. But so there's some really interesting work around there about how we get young people and any of us to engage with feedback.
So we'll have the rapid fire round later, but I have a rapid fire question for you guys. 3 myths about the CBSE board. Schools, CBSE schools.
3 myths, you're saying. One I mentioned earlier also, that CBSE school are basically are promoting road-based learning.
Yeah.
That is one. They do not promote sports, arts, music, dance, these kind of co-curricular activities. That's the second myth. And CBSE schools are easy to pass.
That is a myth.
There, yeah.
3 myths. Okay, 3 myths about British.
3 myths about international schools.
3 myths about British international schools. First of all, that they're only for British students.
Okay.
What we're finding around the world now is maybe if you go back 20 years, British international schools were like 80% expat, 20% local students. Now it's the opposite. ISC research are telling us, who do a lot of research in this area, they're saying that it's now 20% expat, 80% local. So they're not just for British, they're normally very international and quite often serving substantial local populations. Second myth is if you go to British international school, you only go to a British university. Absolute nonsense. Students who attend British international schools go to universities all over the world. So it's like British education, international future. And the third myth is that, what's the third myth? That British international schools are always very expensive. There are some really interesting models now, British international schools. I can think of, for example, the GEMS founder model in UAE, where they are actually creating a model of international education, which is accessible to a much broader sector of the population. So they are not necessarily the most expensive schools.
So you spoke about being expensive. So what is the average fee of a CBSE school in India?
I think CBSE schools are pretty affordable, though from premium schools to very, very reasonable schools across, because CBSE is a board with thousands and thousands of schools under its umbrella. So I think it's not about CBSE, because if we consider CBSE as a board, it's not expensive, of course.
Okay.
Examination fee and other things are pretty reasonable. They're very affordable for all strata of society here. But yes, the schools are premium, or a general category of schools where they are able to provide certain basic kind of amenities to students only. So, like school ranging from, I have seen CBSE school like our school, which is less than 1 lakh in Indian rupees of
Yeah.
a year, to somewhere around 5 also I have seen certain
Okay.
schools charging that kind of thing, but even lower. I mean, I've seen schools charging around 50,000 also per annum, less than that as well.
So
So
we could
all
say
kind of
50,000 up till 3 to 4
3
lakh.
to 4 lakh, yeah, I would say, yeah. It's the range it will fall into.
What is the average fee of an international school per annum?
You'd have to ask IC Research that,
Yeah.
but it does depend very much on the year group.
Okay.
So it normally is cheaper for the younger children, more expensive for the older children.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Oman, it varies. So, I mean, my knowledge of fees in the Middle East, I mean, I can give you figures in Omani Real.
Yeah.
You can probably pay at the lower end of KG anything around 2,000 Real a year for KG.
That is 5 lakh Indian rupees.
Okay.
Approximately. Yeah.
And then up to 12, 13, 14,000 Real at Key Stage 5 or Post 16 for some of the most high-end schools in some parts of the Middle East, and anywhere in between that. So it's a great range depending on the type of school, where it is in the world, the population it's serving. You know, it's highly variable.
So upwards of 5 lakhs up to 20 to 25 lakh Indian rupees. Now we have a rapid fire round for you guys. So I'll ask the question, you just have to answer quickly. So I'll ask the question for both of you. One strength of your board, which is CBSE.
Flexible.
Recognized around the world for its quality.
Okay. Quality in terms of
exam reliability, in terms of recognized by universities for university entrance globally.
Okay. One weakness of your board.
Flexibility again, I would say.
So strength is flexibility and
Yeah.
weakness is also
I
flexibility.
would say yes, because if just to elaborate on that, because
Yeah.
one part of flexibility where they've been trying to incorporate lot many things at different levels with very good reputation of bringing about those changes and making those changes, but also inflexibility in terms of being able to roll out all these changes in one go. They've been taking time because of the logistic issues, of course, beyond
Yeah.
their control, also been doing the best of it. But I would say, yeah, both these things I would put in the same bracket. Yeah.
One weakness of international boards.
Weakness with A levels with the boards is that when you get your results, you get the results towards the end of August, and then the university academic terms start in September. So the turnaround time between getting your results, which will depend on which university you go to,
Yeah.
and then university term starting is far too short. So there are two solutions to that. One is either the university start their terms later in the year, which they don't want to do, or you bring the exams much earlier into the school year, which schools don't want to do. And so there's a bit of an impasse, but that is a challenge.
CBSE kids in one word.
Inquirers.
And international school kids in one word.
Best for the world.
Why?
Because the combination of knowledge, understanding, and skills helps them be able to tackle issues all over the world in whatever domain they're studying in.
Would a CBSE student make a good prime minister?
Yes, absolutely.
Why do you think so?
Because any student has the potential actually to raise to the occasion. It's just that a CBSE school or a non-CBSE school, I'm not sure, but a student given right kind of nurturing, building that kind of confidence at the schooling years would definitely put him in good stead to be anything in the world actually. Yeah.
If tomorrow you had to put your child in some board, which board would you choose?
With this changing scenario, I'd prefer to put the child, if the child has to study in India only, I would put him in CBSE board only.
So do you think if a child wants to study abroad, CBSE is not appropriate?
At present, no, not to that extent, because all those things which are required for a child to get into an university system abroad is not getting covered in CBSE so far. Though it's going in that direction, but at present, no, I don't think so, because that kind of research is one thing I would prominently put into place in terms of CBSE lacks that kind of system. It may be promoting it in one way or the other, or vocational courses, for example, design and technology has been talking about. Even when we are talking about different subjects like drone engineering, for example, AI, when you're talking about all these things, so these are, yes, a part of the plan for CBSE, but IB boards and IGCSE boards have worked already a lot into that area. A lot of integrated lab. Children are having a lot of hands-on working on it. So I have some kind of understanding about those boards. So I can say if they have to study abroad, yes, liberal education institution these days are demanding all these things from Indian students as well. A 360-degree kind of, a holistic kind of assessment in terms of how they present themselves, how they write an essay, how they get into those things. But yes, the hands-on working as far as CBSE is concerned is still constrained in terms of giving them a vocational kind of courses exposure and having them credited for what they want to go into different colleges. Like I told you about sports also initially, it's not that sports children playing at different levels in state or national are not getting seats in the higher education institution, but then they are limited. They're
Very
not being
few.
considered as one with at par with all other core subjects or elective subjects out there. So these are few things. So if they have to study here, of course, CBSE gives them an edge in terms of the breadth of content, lot of content coverage, of course. Children build that kind of perseverance also to stay in all this while. But if they have to go abroad, then I would think twice.
If I study in a British board, can I only go to Britain or the UK for
You can-
higher education?
You can go anywhere in the world. And we're going to be sharing a map very shortly, Avi, which I'm really excited about because I love this map. And it shows where our students of recent years, where they've gone to university, and it's all over the world.
One thing you secretly admire about any other board in the world or in India?
I secretly admire ICSC board in terms of not, but I met few students, and I find them very having depth of knowledge. So the content which they cover somehow gives them a deeper edge, penetration into the content areas. So that is something I want to explore more, but I admire about ICSC.
So on social media, when we see there are a lot of reels going viral, so ICSE is an Indian board. So ICSE students are supposed to be proper and they speak good English and their personalities are supposed to be much better. Do you think this is the case that CBSE students don't have a good personality?
I don't think so. It's also about the volumes now. If you look at the ICSC school, generally the ICSC board has been adopted majorly earlier by Christian schools only. So the Christian school anyways have that kind of advantage of giving students an exposure in English at a much deeper level than an ordinary CBSE school anywhere in the country. So that could be one of the reasons, of course. CBSE school, if you put those children at par with in terms of the schools which are progressive schools, which are working with children, I don't see that kind of difference. I see children are children everywhere. You give them that kind of opportunity and they show their talent and the hidden talent comes out. But no, therefore, I won't put demean CBSE in any way. CBSE is providing out that scope for children, giving that kind of opportunity. It's just that the volumes are too high. Therefore, comparison is, I think, we can't put them at par with each other.
Thank you for the lovely answers in the rapid fire round. Now we have the last question for both of you. 3 things you want to tell parents, any board, anywhere in the world.
You go first.
First. 3 things I want to tell
3
parents.
brutal things you want to tell parents.
Okay. So the first thing is, I think our children are often a lot more resilient than we actually believe they are as parents. So young kids they're pretty tough. They can tolerate quite a lot. That's when it's young people are resilient. The second thing is, and you hear this so often from older parents whose children have grown up and they suddenly realize they missed huge chunks of their children's childhood and they regret it. And once it's gone, so try and think about how you prioritize spending time with your children, because once that time's gone, it never happens again. And the third thing is, I guess maybe linked to that, think about the time when you are with your children. And I'm really pleased when I hear some of my students tell me that in their families they don't allow phones at the table, and they sit down every evening wherever possible,
which is rare.
and they have dinner together and they talk together.
Yeah.
Please think about spending time with your children and engaging with them.
The first thing I would like to tell parents is that students need, or children need, support, not suggestions. So when we advise, give too many advice, students actually shut off. They don't listen. So it's a support they require. We need to move with them, understand them better, to be able to nudge them to go to whatever way we want to take them to together. That is the first thing I would say. So support, not suggestions. Second, I would say, of course, having some kind of regulation as a whole family. I completely agree with when you were saying in terms of the family time, the dinner time, no phones there. There has to be time for the entire family to sit together and converse.
Yeah.
So this dialogues are important, listening to child and speaking about it, and not only always checking on him whether he has studied or not, kind of thing. There has to be some kind of conversation where children can speak to parents freely. That is the second thing I would say. And the third thing I would say, and most importantly, I would say, the parents need to understand that all is well. So there is no need to be unnecessarily panicked about things which are happening around, or the students at times not listening, or children not listening to them at that way. They have to believe and trust that process is always gradual. Students learn in case we are setting that environment right around them. Students do thrive. They come out of it. There may be some kind of hiccups on the way in between. It's a temporary kind
Yeah.
of thing. But eventually, the
You'll come out
environment
of
being
it.
right, they all come out of it. And it's just that it's important that we cherish and savor the moment also we spend with kids, rather than always pushing them to do this or that, or not being satisfied with what they are already doing.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to say is I've been seeing all over the schools, because I visit about 400 to 500 schools in a year.
Mm.
So what I see is that teachers are taking their jobs for granted. They are not understanding the level of technology, the level of psychology, the way kids are evolving in today's day and age. I'm talking about the majority. So do you think teachers need any reality checks in this world?
I think you need to come to my school, Avi, and meet my teachers. You'll meet a fantastically engaged team of teachers who are working really, really hard to keep up to date with what's going on in the world and in education and within young people. So I don't recognize the picture you've just painted.
Okay.
Yeah, for me also, because right from the beginning, the focus has been on in-service teacher training. For us also, we always knew if an adult changes, everything around that adult changes. So therefore, in our school, if you talk about it, of course, I would say the same thing, that way only the teachers are motivated, driven. And it's always actually, once we are investing in teachers now, there's always a critical mass which is built.
Yeah.
And that has an impact on the environment as a whole. So
Yeah.
any new person coming in will get into that kind of. But if you're not paying that much attention on teachers' growth, progress, learning, and when I say learning, it's all learning. It's also about emotional kind of holding of teachers
Yeah.
also. So when people are attached to an organization, when they say my kids, no, when they have that kind of ownership into what they are doing, because teaching is leadership. I mean, in the classroom, you are alone there with the
Yeah.
student. Unless you have that kind of ownership, no force from outside can actually make you give your best.
Absolutely.
So I think teachers, because teachers, yes, but I agree with you. In case teachers are not trained, if the management is not driven towards a purpose, it's for some other reason. It's just to appease somebody or make only people happy about certain things. Yes, these kind of things happen. They do happen. We are seeing a lot of government schools struggling because of this only. Very talented teachers, but then not driven. I have seen from our own school, best of our teachers going to the government schools there, UPSC cleared, went there, and they've only been doing administrative work. They're not getting a chance to go into the classes to see the academic kind of things which are happening or taking place for students to improve.
Which is extremely sad.
That is sad. So we are wasting that kind of talent. So it's more at a systemic level and not to put squarely on teacher. I think teachers need that kind of respect, nurturing, and they do want to give their best to students. That's my belief.
Thank you so much to both of you for being on the podcast. I think all the listeners and the viewers will get a good brief about the CBSE and the international boards, how they are functioning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avi. It's been a great pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And for me also, no, it's not only about answering these things, but also listening from you has been a learning experience, actually getting a broader perspective of how things are moving around in world. Thank you so much.
We hope to host you guys again, because this conversation of different boards, it can go on for 10 hours also.
It can. No, and we're learning a lot from each other. As you say, having the conversation, it's opening my eyes to your world, and we're learning a lot. So thank you for
arranging
this, Avi. Fantastic.